Day 4 training camp all but over as the Browns get an off day on Sunday, one they're very much looking forward to. But we certainly got some stuff to recap here, Megs, as we close out the first week, we could say, here of training camp and sort of turn the page to week 2. Certainly another – I think today was a little more eventful than yesterday. Defense continues to dominate. We'll highlight some of that as well. But certainly some good stuff to get into, Megs.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. Today was like the first day that didn't have like breaking news associated with it. I know we weren't on the air yesterday, but obviously Jordan Hicks announces his retirement. Obviously, we've all had all of the other stuff that's happened. So it was good today that it was just like, for the first time this training camp, it was just football. And from what I could tell, clips that surfaced kind of out of practice, that the offense kind of maybe got back a little bit more on track. Obviously, you just see kind of the highlights from my perspective, but definitely looked like, hey, we're getting into day 4, 5, and 6. It's time for the offense to start kind of looking the part, and it seemed to be today they took that step.
Yeah, listen, yesterday was pretty rough in terms of the offense, especially when these teams do red zone. You're expecting to see some touchdowns, and there wasn't a single touchdown thrown yesterday during red zone work. So today that did change. We'll get into that here a little bit, and I think it sort of does revolve around just the rotation of quarterbacks, which continue to sort of be in some ways the same, in some ways a little bit different. First 11-on-11 session was full team with like the full field at your disposal, and Pickett started that one off first with the ones, transitioned to Deshaun Watson to transition to Shedeur Sanders. That would have been a real curveball if it was Deshaun Watson out there.
Wait a second.
Transition to Shedeur Sanders with the 2s. And then it went to Dillon Gabriel with the 3s just for a couple plays. He didn't get a ton there. And then they started sort of a modified, we'll call it 7-on-7 session. And the reason I say that, just to explain to people who either read my stuff where I write about this or I talk about it on these spaces, it's basically like a 7-on-7, but they throw they have like the offensive line, not really. They basically have the offensive line play like defensive line. Like they pretend that they're like, they kind of just like have these bags and they stand there and they kind of like wave their arms, but they don't really like rush the passer. So it's simulating that there's somebody in front of you, but they're not actually, causing any problems for the quarterback in the backfield. So that's what I say when I mean modified 7-on-7. And that actually started with Flacco down in the red zone. They split the fields up, and he had a pretty nice session there. Then it went to Dillon Gabriel, and then Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel got sort of the real team, full team 11-on-11s in the red zone as well. So that was kind of how they divided it up today. And, I think the things that were the same were that Shedeur still very much like, yes, he got work with the 2s today. Still the only quarterback who hasn't gone with the 1s. He also, during that 7-on-7 in the red zone, he was over on the other field by himself. The other 3 quarterbacks were all on the same field together for their respective 7-on-7s. And so I think this speaks to, again, they've put more on Dillon Gabriel's plate. They just kind of feel like he's a little further along, and that group is kind of leading this race with Shedeur. Just they've preached being patient with him, and I think that's what you're seeing here. They are going to be patient with him before they put him out there.
Yeah, no, and it's like one that everybody wants to see him, with that upper group. I think that, kind of early on in camp, we got to remember it is day 4, right? Or day whatever, but day 4, these days start to run together. And it is going to be a long camp, and you will see, Shedeur start to work himself into some of those because frankly, he has to, right? Like you can't go this entire training camp and not get him, with the 1s, with the 2. He obviously got some 2s work today, which is good. But, you will start seeing him in some of those sessions that they're going to, in my opinion, working out, hey, who's going to be the odd man out of the top 2 for sure, and kind of this top 3 with Dillon Gabriel kind of working his way in there, and then allow Shedeur to kind of work his way through that, and try to continue to compete there. But man, at the end of the day, we've talked about a ton on our show. It gets talked about at length, but like, it's just really hard, and you're there every day. It's really hard to try to filter 4 quarterbacks in. It's just like,
yeah, it is. You're right about that. It's very difficult.
It's just difficult. Like there's not enough reps in the day. There's not enough reps in a practice to try to work out 4 guys. So like, sooner rather than later, man, like there has to be a change. Like you have to, at some point, there's got to be a change.
Well, and I will say this real quick, and then we'll get to the change because I do think it's coming. This isn't to say either like Shedeur isn't trying to make the most of his reps. I think these first 3 days were a little rougher for him, but I think today he actually did have his best day here at training camp. In the spring's a different story. I think he was the best quarterback in the spring. Here at training camp, I think he had his best day today. And he did have a really nice touchdown throw during that early 11-on-11s, which was like full team, with the full field. He navigated the pocket well. There was some pressure bearing down on him, kind of stepped up, delivered a nice ball to Luke Floria, your boy from Kent State, sort of crossing the field on this like, cornerish like route. And he caught it into the sideline, cut it up and scored. I called it the play of the day. I think it is the play of the day. So I think Shedeur is trying to make the most with these reps that he can, but I think the team is telling you he's still fourth on the step chart and they just trust the other guys a little bit more. Now, you mentioned a change. I think we could start to see this thing change a little bit coming up here on Monday. I think they use these first 4 days to kind of get a sense of like where everybody's at. And I do think they're going to tighten things up in terms of how they use it, because there's only so many reps you can to go around during a practice. Like you said, it's very difficult to evaluate 4 quarterbacks in this setting. And so understanding that, like, I think they're going to tighten things up a little bit. I think you're going to see Flacco and Pickett get a lot more of those reps with Gabriel sprinkled in, and Shedeur is probably going to have an even reduced workload because of that. And I think that's just part of that too is Monday's the first day with full pads. Kevin Stefanski told us that today. They're going to be in full pads Monday. And so that's where things really get turned up a notch. And so I do think that change is coming a little bit in terms of how they do this thing, how they handle this quarterback race. And you'll see it start to change in the way that they handle the reps, divvy out the reps, and all those different things.
And think of it from the team perspective too. Like as you get further along in training camp, this isn't just a quarterback evaluation. You're going to have to start getting prepared for a season, and you can't do that. With guys coming in and out, like you need to get whoever's going to be the one quarterback on September 7th or whatever it is, September 8th. Against Cincinnati, you're going to have to. You're not tomorrow, not Monday, but soon in the next couple of weeks, you're going to have to start seeing that so that you can develop that chemistry, build that out. Because look around the league, right? We see clips, every day from, you see clips from Cincinnati, you see clips, from Dallas or wherever, where they have their number one quarterback in, and they're already starting to build that chemistry where the Browns are going to be 2-3 weeks behind that because they're trying to do this quarterback competition. And not to say that, we didn't expect that. Obviously we knew that this was going to be the case, but at some point, like you said, there's going to have to be a change. And in my opinion, like, I think you're going to have to, whoever you're not going to go with between Flacco and Pickett, like you got to send the other one out, like get him out so that you can start getting real reps with the team.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to see that necessarily happen until late in training camp, 53-man roster cut down. But to your point, I've kind of pinpointed, Megs, like I think that they start to tweak the reps a little bit this coming week. And then I think we will get a sense, even if they don't say it out loud, which they might even just come out and say it. Kevin Stefanski may just say it. But I think the moment we get a better sense of who the starting quarterback's going to be is going to be after that the joint practices with the Eagles. I've talked about it before. This team loves using joint practices. So do a lot of teams around the league as like their real barometer for where their team's at, where guys are at. It's controlled setting. You can do you can work on the things you really want to work on. And so I think we'll get to a point where after those joint practices with the Eagles, they'll have a pretty clear understanding of like, here's where we're at. Now we're going to use the rest of this preseason and whatnot to get ready for week one. And so whether it's outwardly saying it or whether it's just like how they divvy things up, I think we'll know after those Eagles joint practices in that preseason game who they're leaning towards being their starting quarterback. So that's kind of my idea of the timeline. We'll see if that's how it actually shakes out, but I would assume that to me makes sense in terms of where this thing is headed. And we'll just have to see how it all goes.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. And, it's another year where you're facing a top team in the NFC. They went to joint practices last year with the Vikings. You're going to get the Eagles to go to the Eagles as Super Bowl champs, right? Like that's who you want to be evaluating against. I think that, this group, you kind of try to stack these days, but you got to start, as you get into August. And I got to remember, even myself too, like it's July 26th, right? Like, there's still a lot of time left, but this thing's going to happen fast. And all of a sudden, you're going to be getting to the end of preseason. I mean, heck, we got football this week, right? There's football on Thursday, less than a week from today, where there's a football game in. Like, it's going to start happening fast, and I think we're going to start seeing some things
for sure. I do want to highlight the defense again after day 4, because the defense continues to, I think, look really, really good. Now, I will say, and we've talked about this before, Megs. Defenses tend to look ahead of the offenses this time of year. That's like across the board. You could come to Browns camp. You could probably go to Steelers camp. You could probably go to Rams camp. The defense is like, the training camp is basically for them, like, read and react to plays, right? And the offense is like, hey, we're working through some things. Different guys in different roles. Like, does he know his route? Does he know where to put the football? So there's always some learning curve, I think, for the offense more so than the defense. But especially the secondary, like, every time it seems like there's a tight window throw, it's incomplete because somebody has a corner draped on them. And it's been across the board. Like, Denzel's doing his thing, but Greg Newsome, who, by the way, he's bounced around. He's played a little outside corner. He's played a little inside corner. He's been tight on guys. Martin Emerson Jr. had a pass breakup today. Greg Newsome had one yesterday. So I think you're seeing in real time, like, this secondary and their dominance and the ability to lock guys down, at least early on in training camp. We'll see once the offense really gets rolling what it kind of looks like, but it's a good start for that group, and it's a second day in a row where I found myself saying, yeah, the defense pretty much won today. They dominated for the most part.
Yeah, you love to hear that the secondary is doing its thing, because, like, for 3 of those guys, well, 2 of them, the urgency should be through the roof, right? Greg Newsome,
contract years. Yeah,
this is huge contract years for those 2, and, like, if they both ball out, one of them's not going to be in Cleveland next year, and that's a good thing, because one of them, they're both getting paid. Now the other way that goes is if they both play poorly or one of them plays poorly, they're not going to be in Cleveland as well, because they're going to have to kind of move on. So it's like this, like they're at that fork in the road early on in their careers. And then for 21, I mean, Denzel Ward, just the clips I see coming out of practice, whether it be in full team settings or one-on-one settings or whatever it may be, he just seems like a technician, man. He just seems like, all right, year 8, I've gotten better at a couple things, but I'm still the best cover guy in the entire NFL. And, like, when healthy, he is that. And he just is so smooth, just in and out of routes, in and out of cuts. And he's always on the football. It's a real pleasure that he's on our side of things, because he's looking at having one of those kind of years again that he had last year.
Well, speaking of the defense, too, there's an interesting sort of element now to this group where you lose Jordan Hicks, who announced his retirement yesterday. And listen, all respect to Jordan Hicks. I think he had a solid career. He was a good player. And I think the Browns were looking forward to having him in this group. I've sort of preached that I thought this linebacker group was better than people were giving it credit for in terms of, like, depth. And now you lose Jordan Hicks. I think that changes the math, pretty significantly, because you were banking on him being a starter for you. So that's a problem they're going to have to sort of navigate and deal with here. But beyond that, like, I do think the absence of Jordan Hicks is going to open up some opportunities for other players to really embrace leadership roles. It was something that I know we talked to Grant Delpit today. You can find his press conference up on the YouTube channel here for Cleveland Browns on SI. And he kind of said, like, yeah, I'm going to do whatever I have to do. I'm happy to speak up. He also highlighted the fact that he thinks those guys in that linebacker group are going to do a great job, and they already are doing a great job. He highlighted Carson Schlesinger as somebody who I think is going to have more on his plate now without Jordan Hicks around. And what's interesting about that, man, is, like, he's had the green dot the last couple of days. Like, he's really been calling out the plays. That's a lot for a rookie to handle. But in some ways, Megs, I kind of feel like it's a good thing, because you're going to get to find out pretty much immediately. Who is this guy? What does he bring to the table? Can he handle this? You're throwing him into the fire. And on a team that is kind of in this weird transition, they're trying to win while rebuild a little bit. I think it's almost what you kind of want, right? Like, let's see what this guy can do, and if he's really going to be that cornerstone, one of these cornerstone players on defense that we think he can be.
Yeah, it's almost they got their hand forced into, like, hey, all right, let's just figure it out. There's no other way around it. And the good part is, and I agree that I think it is positive, there's going to be some learning curves, but, like, even Schlesinger himself compared himself to Luke Kuechly. And, like, you think back to, like, what Luke Kuechly was amazing at, was he just knew exactly what the offense was going to do at all times. And you give a guy like that who believes in himself in that type of way, give him the green dot, and there is going to be some learning curves. Like, if he's got the green dot in week 1 against Joe Burrow in Cleveland Brown Stadium or Huntington Bank Field, whatever, like, there will be some times where mistakes are made. And then the next week against Lamar Jackson, again against Jared Goff, again against Jordan Love. Like they're facing these incredible
JJ McCarthy, if we're worried about him.
Yeah, JJ McCarthy. Did
he throw 4 picks yesterday, by the way?
Yeah, he did. He did. Yeah.
Sorry, I should keep my Michigan hatred down. I'm sorry.
This is the Browns show. Don't forget it's the Browns. But yeah, I think it's trial by fire, and it could be positive. It really could be a positive, especially for a team that has the outlook of winning 5.5 games and potentially not making the playoffs. Like, sure, figure out what you got in this young rookie and let him learn by making a lot of mistakes.
On the injury front, Cedric Tillman was back out there today after leaving practice early yesterday. He took a spill, trying to jump for a ball in the end zone during a red zone yesterday. Stayed down. Looked like he was kind of favoring his left leg. We all kind of guessed it was like a cramp type thing. But he was back today. Guys who were out, other than like the PUP guys, which are Deshaun and Mike Hall, and the non-football injury list guys. Yet you didn't have Tony Brown was missing yet again. No Michael Woods, who in this wide receiver room, anybody can make the team, it seems like. So, missing a few days isn't a great start for him. They were also missing Jerome Ford, obviously, which we'll get to here in a second. And then who am I missing? Tevin Jenkins, the guard that they signed this offseason, was also absent for the second straight day. Of those, Jerome hasn't played any of the days, and Kevin Stefanski just continues to say he's kind of progressing. Disappointing, though, start for him because, listen, we know what's going on with Quinshon Judkins. You're kind of expecting Jerome as the elder statesman in that group to be prepared, be ready, step up, make some of those big plays in the run game, and to not have him out there yet, just kind of getting that rhythm and all that. It's a little bit of a red flag to start camp here that he's not able to go. And I'm not saying it's his fault. If it's an injury thing, it's an injury thing. But yeah, like this offense needs that run game to be effective. And right now it's kind of like a big question mark as to who's even going to be back there week 1. So still waiting to see Jerome Ford take the field for the first time.
Yeah, it's obviously disappointing for him too, right? For all the reasons you said. What was good to see back was David Njoku yesterday. Always good to have him back. Obviously, he was out for the first couple of days.
Yeah, he had a person. I think his dad passed away over the weekend. So, yeah, he was kind of dealing with some stuff, but he was back for day 2, 3, and 4 for sure.
Yeah, always good to have him back. Have him back on the field. So good to see him. You'll see. We'll figure out what happens with Jerome Ford. But again, that running back room again was one of those that we were excited about, and very similar to that linebacker room. A lot of question marks, right? Don't know what's totally wrong with Jerome Ford, but now you're looking at two backs in that room where we were looking at 4 guys who you were really excited about. Now it's a big question mark back there, and that's just another one of those very frustrating kind of storylines here to start this training camp.
Well, the full pads will come on Monday when the team returns. They are off on Sunday. I'm going to enjoy a day not having to go outside in the crazy heat and just kick my feet up, hopefully. So that'll be nice. Stay in the AC because it's been absolutely brutal out here. I feel like I've sweat through all my clothes. I'm sure the players feel that way as well. But, yeah, back at it on Monday. Team will be in full pads. And I'll tell you guys, the stats we've been sharing on social media these last couple of days, I get it. We're all going to read into it what we will. The stats really start on Monday because once they get the full pads on, once guys can get tackled, other than the quarterbacks, of course, that's where we start to get a real sense of who can make it in this league, who can play at that level, who can play at that speed, who's not afraid to get hit, all those different things. So we'll get the first viewpoint of that on Monday. We've talked about Kevin Stefanski running more of a tough camp this year. We'll see if they're doing fully take guys to the ground or not once we get there. But that is on the horizon here as camp rolls on. But 4 days down, we got plenty more to go. And I look forward to seeing many of you out here on Monday for practice. In the meantime, make sure you head on over to Cleveland Browns on SI, our website, which really the URL is at the bottom there, si.com/NFL/Browns. Working on finishing my overarching, here's what you missed piece for today, which will go up here pretty shortly once we get done with this. And also, we'll have some other written content up there for you, just from press conferences and things today, I'm sure. But I also implore you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. We'll have you covered throughout the entire season, training camp, and the regular season, and the postseason, if that were a thing that was maybe going to happen for this team, we'll see. And we have you covered, of course, all year round here at this channel as well. And if you enjoy what you heard today, Megs and I are doing this constantly, so we appreciate the support. And then, anyway, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, And, of course, we'll be back on Monday. And until then, keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns, with the Cleveland Browns on SI.